Let's be real. If you're skipping out on PS1 RPGs in 2025, you're seriously missing out. These games weren't just good, they were legendary. So today, we're diving into 10 jaw-dropping RPGs from the golden era that still crush it in 2025. Whether you're revisiting old memories or discovering them for the first time, get ready, because this list hits hard. Before we jump into today's video, quick question. You ever download a classic gem from a totally questionable site that looked like it time-traveled straight out of 2003? You know, pop-ups everywhere, weird file names, and that sinking feeling like, am I downloading a game or a virus? Yeah, me too. That's why I use NordVPN. It doesn't just keep your connection fast and encrypted, it blocks malicious websites, trackers, and protects you from malware while you're out there. How can I put this? Looking for gems. With servers in over 60 countries, you can unlock games, videos, and even sweet regional deals you'd never see otherwise. And the best part? One subscription covers up to 10 devices: PC, phone, tablet, maybe even that dusty old laptop from your emulator days. It's super easy to set up, and using my special link below, you get 73% off plus 3 extra months free. And if for some reason you're not into it, no worries. Within 30 days, you get 100% of your money back. No questions asked. So stop rolling the dice. One sketchy download or fried motherboard could cost more than 20 years of NordVPN. Click the link in the description and pinned comment right now and lock in your deal today. First up is a tactical gem that too many people slept on, Vandal Hearts. Released back in 1996 by Konami, this strategy RPG was ahead of its time. It's brutal, fast-paced, and delivers exactly what fans of the genre crave: tight grid-based combat, high stakes, and a gritty war-torn story that doesn't hold your hand. It's not as famous as Final Fantasy Tactics, but make no mistake, Vandal Hearts earned its place as one of the sharpest strategy experiences on the PlayStation 1. What really stands out is how quick and responsive the gameplay feels. Battles don't drag, and every unit you move can make or break your next few turns. It's not about flashy animations, it's about reading the battlefield, positioning right, and adapting on the fly. That's what makes it so addicting. It pulls you in and doesn't let go. Another thing that really makes Vandal Hearts stand out is the class system. It's simple at first glance, but once you start upgrading your units, you realize there's a ton of flexibility under the hood. Promotions actually change your character's appearance and open up new strategies mid-game. And since every choice feels permanent, you're constantly thinking 2 steps ahead. Combine that with the game's isometric maps filled with elevation tricks and deadly choke points, and you've got a battlefield that rewards smart, patient play. A lot of people missed this one back in the day, either because it never got the hype it deserved in the West, or because they were too focused on the bigger names. But if you're into tactical RPGs and you want something that still holds up in 2025, this one's a must. You can play it on PS1, Sega Saturn, or even PC, but the PS1 version is where it really found its footing. Wild Arms 2 never really got the spotlight it deserved. While most people only talk about the first one, the sequel was just as strong, maybe even better in some ways. It kept the Western meets fantasy vibe that made the series stand out, but took everything to a deeper level with its characters and story. You could feel the passion in every scene, and for a PS1 game, it went places most RPGs wouldn't even dare. The combat was tight, the soundtrack hit hard, and the story had that raw emotional pull that stuck with you long after the credits rolled. Wild Arms 2 was more than just a follow-up. It felt like the developers took real risks and tried to push boundaries, especially for the time. It leans hard into ideas like identity, sacrifice, and the moral gray area between right and wrong. The narrative isn't just about saving the world, it's about the cost of doing it. You've got characters with real baggage, and the game isn't afraid to show the consequences of their choices. What makes the combat in Wild Arms 2 stand out is how layered it feels without getting too overwhelming. Each character has their own unique tools and abilities, and battles move at a quick pace, which keeps things engaging. The Force system adds another layer of strategy, letting you pull off special moves once your gauge fills up. And it's satisfying to time those right during tough fights. There's also a lot of room to customize your party and adapt your tactics depending on the enemies you're facing. Now that both Wild Arms 1 and 2 are back on PlayStation Plus Deluxe with trophy support, there's really no excuse to skip it. Yeah, the remaster is nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. And trust me, once you start it, you won't want to stop. It's one of those games that quietly becomes a favorite without you even realizing it. When people talk about the Suikoden series, most of the praise usually goes straight to Suikoden 2. And yeah, there's a reason for that, it's a masterpiece. But here's the thing, none of that would exist without the original Suikoden. This is where it all started. The story, the style, the 108 Stars of Destiny. It laid the groundwork for everything that came after, and honestly, it still holds up. The first Suikoden might not be as flashy or complex as its sequel, but don't let that fool you. The pacing is tight, the characters are memorable, and the whole recruitment system, still incredibly addictive. There's something special about watching your castle grow as you gather allies from all over the world, each one with their own backstory and charm. The combat might seem simple on the surface, but it's got some cool touches that keep it fun. You've got traditional turn-based battles, but the game mixes things up with different formats, like one-on-one duels and large-scale army battles that feel totally different from regular encounters. These shifts in structure help break up the pace and keep things fresh. Each character also brings something unique to your lineup, and when you've got over 100 to choose from, finding the right combos can be half the fun. One thing that often gets overlooked is how Suikoden handled choices and consequences way before that became a big deal in RPGs. Some of the characters you recruit can permanently die depending on your decisions, and others might not even show up if you miss key moments. Now that both Suikoden 1 and Suikoden 2 have been remastered for modern platforms, there's no excuse not to dive in. The new version looks beautiful, but it still keeps that nostalgic pixel vibe intact. And if you've never played the original before, 2025 is the perfect time to fix that. The Legend of Legaia didn't just try something different, it was different. Back on the PlayStation 1, most turn-based RPGs followed the same safe formula. But this one? It threw that out the window with a combat system that felt like you were actually inputting martial arts combos. Instead of just picking commands from a menu and watching the same old animations, Legaia gave you full control over your attacks with something called the art system. You'd input directional combos like left, right, and up, almost like pulling off fighting game moves, and depending on the sequence, your character would unleash special techniques. The more you experimented, the more powerful arts you'd unlock. What made it even better was how the upgrade system tied into all of that. You didn't just level up and call it a day. Each character had gear and accessories that could shift your strategy completely, and learning new arts depended on both your level and how much you experimented in battle. You also had the Siru system, where these living armor-like creatures would boost your stats and unlock special abilities. Finding the right Siru and leveling them up felt just as important as any weapon or item. What really hits, though, is how bold the game was. It blended a post-apocalyptic world with living weapons, mystical creatures, and a storyline that escalates in the best way possible. The characters are solid, the gameplay still holds up, and while the graphics show their age, the art direction makes it all feel unique even today. It's wild that this game didn't blow up like other titles from that era. It got a sequel on the PlayStation 2, sure, but it never reached the spotlight it deserved. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to drop a like. It helps a ton and tells the algorithm this content's worth sharing. And if you're into classic RPGs like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Seriously, thanks for watching and hanging out here with me. Let's keep going. Arc the Lad 2 is one of those forgotten gems that never got the spotlight it deserved outside of Japan. While the first game felt a bit too basic for some fans, the sequel took everything up a notch. We're talking about a full-blown tactical RPG with better pacing, deeper strategy, and a massive roster of characters that actually mattered. It's wild how much it improved in just one entry. In Japan, this game was a big deal. It even got its own anime, which says a lot about how popular it was over there. But over here, we barely knew it existed until years later, when Sony finally dropped the Arc the Lad collection for the PlayStation 1 back in 2002. By then, it was already old news in Japan, but for a lot of players in the West, it was their first taste of how good this series could be. Arc the Lad 2 blends tactical combat with an RPG structure that feels surprisingly modern. The battle system has layers without being overwhelming, and the story goes beyond the usual good versus evil setup. There's political tension, betrayal, emotional character arcs. It's the kind of game that pulls you in and keeps you there. Another thing that really stands out is how the upgrade system adds weight to your decisions. Weapons and armor can be enhanced, special abilities evolve as you progress, and certain skills only unlock through repeated use. Some characters even get unique upgrades tied to their story arcs, which makes you want to see their journeys through. What's frustrating is how Sony just let this franchise fade into the background. With today's tech and the rise of retro gaming, this series is begging for a proper remaster. But even if that never happens, Arc the Lad 2 still holds up incredibly well. Saga Frontier 2 is one of those games that flew under the radar for years. But man, it deserves way more love. It's part of the Saga series, a long-running RPG franchise from Square that never really hit it big in the West, even though it has some seriously unique ideas. This one in particular stands out not just for how it plays, but for how insanely beautiful it looks. We're talking about hand-drawn backgrounds and pixel art that feel more like a painting than a game. It's stunning even by today's standards. It had this watercolor aesthetic that gave every scene a dreamy storybook vibe. It wasn't trying to be flashy, it was just effortlessly stylish. The gameplay took some risks too, ditching traditional RPG formulas for a more experimental, timeline-driven structure. It tells two parallel stories that weave together in a way that feels fresh, even now. You've got turn-based battles with a team of up to 5 characters, but the way actions chain together keeps things dynamic. Sometimes your attacks will naturally combo if certain moves are used in the right order. And that creates this cool flow where the whole team feels connected. And what really makes the upgrade system stand out in Saga Frontier 2 is how characters don't gain experience in the usual way. There's no traditional leveling system. Instead, your team grows based on what they actually do in combat. Swing a sword enough times and you might unlock a stronger mid-fight. Cast spells and you'll start triggering more powerful variations. Recently, it got a remaster for modern platforms, and honestly, it's the best way to experience it. The updated version keeps the original look but makes everything cleaner and smoother, letting the art truly shine on today's screens. If you've never touched a Saga game before, this is a great place to start. It's not overly complicated, but it gives you a real taste of what makes the series special. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Everyone always brings up the first Lunar like it's the only one that matters, but the sequel, it goes even harder. It keeps that same emotional punch, that same charm, but it dials everything up. Better writing, deeper characters, a more mature tone. It feels like the devs knew exactly what they wanted to do and just went for it. The game blends classic JRPG vibes with a surprisingly personal story, filled with real stakes and characters that actually grow. It's one of those titles that pulls you in with its lighthearted look, then catches you off guard with how heavy it hits emotionally. The pacing is tight, the combat is sharp, and the soundtrack, pure magic. The combat in Lunar 2 strikes a perfect balance between old-school charm and smart design. It's turn-based, but with a focus on movement and positioning that adds a lot more depth than you'd expect. Characters don't just stand in place, you actually see them run across the battlefield to reach their targets. And that movement matters. Spells and attacks have specific ranges, so choosing who to hit, where they're standing, and how your team is spaced out becomes a big part of the strategy. Some skills can hit multiple enemies if they're close together, while others have delays or special effects that force you to plan ahead. The world building in Lunar 2 also deserves more love. Towns aren't just stopovers. They feel lived in, packed with small details, side characters with actual personality, and dialogue that shifts as the story moves forward. Even the NPCs evolve over time, reacting to major events and giving the whole world this grounded and evolving feel. With both Lunar games getting a remaster now, there's no excuse not to check this out. This isn't just a sequel for the sake of it. It's a full-on evolution, the kind that shows what a passionate team can do when they're building on something special.
Happy Hour!
Chrono Cross came out at the tail end of the PlayStation 1 era, and even though it lived in the shadow of Chrono Trigger, it still delivered something unique. It didn't try to be a direct sequel. It carved its own path with a massive cast, a layered combat system, and a story that plays with time, identity, and consequence in ways that still hold up today. The combat system in Chrono Cross is where the game really sets itself apart. Instead of sticking to the usual turn-based formula, it uses a stamina bar and color-coded elements that turn every battle into a kind of tactical puzzle. Each character has a pool of stamina that they use to perform attacks, and the more powerful the move, the more stamina it drains. On top of that, every skill and spell is tied to an element, like fire, water, or shadow, and the field itself shifts depending on what you use. If you stack multiple attacks of the same element, you can boost their power or even unlock devastating summons. One of the coolest things about Chrono Cross is how it handles its alternate dimension mechanic. It's not just a plot twist, it's baked into the gameplay in a way that directly affects who you meet, what quests are available, and how certain scenes play out. You'll often find yourself revisiting familiar places that look totally different, depending on which world you're in. That constant contrast gives the story more weight and makes exploration feel fresh, even when you're backtracking. Back in 2021, the remaster dropped with a pretty rough launch, but credit where it's due, they went back, patched things up, and now it runs way better. You can play it on modern platforms like Switch, PS5, Xbox, or PC without losing what made it special in the first place. And no, you don't need to play Chrono Trigger first. If you're into RPGs that mix emotion with ambition and aren't afraid to get a little weird, Chrono Cross absolutely deserves a spot on your playlist.
Hey, what about him?
He's dead.
Kudelka is one of those hidden PS1 gems that blends two things we rarely saw back then: classic survival horror and turn-based RPG mechanics. It came out looking like a cousin of Silent Hill or Resident Evil, with its creepy mansion, fixed camera angles, and eerie pre-rendered backgrounds. But instead of real-time combat or puzzles, it throws you into strategic battles that feel more like something out of a traditional RPG. This game laid the groundwork for what would later become the Shadow Hearts series, but Kudelka has its own unique vibe. The atmosphere is heavy, unsettling, and soaked in gothic horror. You're stuck in a haunted monastery with dead things that don't want to stay dead, and a story that's way darker than most RPGs dared to go at the time. The voice acting is surprisingly solid for the era, and the soundtrack straight up haunting in the best way. Another cool thing about Kudelka is how much it leans into mature themes without holding back. It's not just scary for the sake of being spooky. It tackles grief, faith, guilt, and the blurred lines between science and the supernatural. The writing feels more grounded than most games from that era, and the lead character isn't your usual RPG hero. Kudelka herself is sharp, cynical, and totally unpredictable, which makes the dialogue and story beats way more engaging than you'd expect from a late 90s title. Now, it's true the animations haven't aged all that well. Everything moves a bit slower than we're used to today, and it never got a proper remaster. But honestly, if you can handle the old-school pacing, you'll find a game that's bold, weird, and totally worth your time. When people talk about the golden age of RPGs on the PlayStation 1, it's impossible not to bring up Final Fantasy IX. This game is a love letter to everything that made the early titles in the franchise so special. While some fans swear by Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy VIII, there's something about 9 that hits differently. It blends that classic medieval fantasy vibe from the NES and SNES era with the polish and scale that only a late-era PS1 title could deliver. It was Square's final big send-off before fully committing to the PlayStation 2, and you can feel that energy in every detail. The world feels alive, the characters have charm, depth, and emotion, and the music's still unforgettable. It's that perfect mix of heart, humor, and heartbreak that makes it timeless. The combat system sticks to classic turn-based roots, but with a few clever twists that make it feel more strategic. Each character fits into a clear role, like tank, mage, or support. And you can't just equip any skill on anyone, which forces you to really think about team composition. Abilities are tied to the gear you equip, and once you master them through battle, they become permanent. That setup makes gear choices way more meaningful, since you're constantly deciding whether to equip something weaker just to learn a new skill. The trance system adds another layer, letting characters unleash powerful abilities when they take enough damage, but it activates automatically, which can be both a blessing and a curse depending on when it triggers. The game also does a great job of pacing its encounters. Regular fights stay engaging with varied enemy types, and the boss battles push you to use everything you've learned. What makes it even better today is how easy it is to access. You can play it on PC with visual mods, or go for the remastered versions available on PS4, Xbox, or Switch. No matter where you play, the experience holds up beautifully. Alright, now I want to hear from you. Which of these RPGs hit you the hardest? Or maybe there's a hidden gem I missed? Drop it in the comments, I read every one. And hey, if you made it this far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.